Hi art family, welcome to my studio. It's Dena Tollefson and my little dog Muffin. I'm so happy to have you here today. It's going to be a great one. I'm going to be demonstrating for you how to create sunflowers in acrylic paint. And I'm also going to be showing you how to create thumbnails. So thumbnails are wonderful ways to test your colors. And I'll be showing you that, and I also want you to say a quick hello to my little birds, Groshi and Romeo, the cockatiels back there. They send you their greetings. So let's get started. So I'm beginning the painting here by toning the canvas using a fluid acrylic from Golden and just a super large Purdy paintbrush. And I love this process, just toning the canvas. This is setting a middle range neutral color, a warm neutral color. I'm putting this fluid acrylic on, and this is going to dry completely, and then I can start my painting. And dipping into a little bit of the acrylic, this Mars Black, and getting the sunflower going. Now I want to also say that this is part of the Red Rover Art Challenge. And so part of the Red Rover Art Challenge is that you can either paint dogs or paint with the color red. So I knew I wanted to make some sunflowers, but I wasn't quite sure of should I have a dark red background, a light red background, that kind of thing. And so what I ended up doing was I started out just making that just general shape of the sunflower, and then before going any further, I did what I'm going to show you that I'm doing here. And I took a piece of canvas and made the canvas the same proportion. So this is a 20 inch by 30 inch canvas. So I made little 2 inch by 3 inch squares, and then I'm labeling them with the options. So I recommend you do, if you're going to do these little thumbnails like this, make as many options as you think you need to evaluate your design. So I am going to try making a bright red background, a burgundy background, and then kind of a cross between a red and a burgundy for background. So what I'll do here is basically do the same thing that I did on the giant canvas, which is in a smaller scale, lay down some of that fluid acrylic and get a toned canvas. And then what I'm also aiming to do here is I want these sunflowers to be super vibrant. So I'll show you the trick that I use in order to ensure that I'm going to have a bold and vibrant painting. Is I'm going to make sure that I have all of the colors going, the values, or light through dark. Here are the colors that I'm using just to get the painting started, some phthalo blue red shade and yellow ochre. But you see this, this chart I've got here. It starts with the number 10, which is white, and then it moves all the way through these values, and then it ends in 1, which is true black. So if you want to have a painting that is super vibrant and reads as colorful, you want to have your values of your colors ranging all the way between 1 and 10. Try and use your colors so that the values will be all represented throughout. So in today's painting, I've got primary yellow, diarrhea yellow, yellow ochre, Indian yellow hue, transparent red oxide, dioxazine purple, titanium white, Mars black, permanent violet dark, from Winsor & Newton, permanent alizarin crimson, and then naphthol red light. So I'm going to use all of these colors and then try and work out a color scheme before on these tiny little thumbnails. And I know that if it looks good in the thumbnail and I like the color combination, it's going to give me confidence when I go up to the big canvas that I'll be able to have a successful color scheme or a successful painting. So I'm starting out here laying the colors on a Masterson Stay Wet palette that keeps your acrylics at the right temperature level. And now I'm making these 3 little thumbnails. I'm going to try and make them not exactly identically the same, but I'm going to try and keep them as close to the same look as possible so I can evaluate and see to see what colors are going to work. So I'm starting out by mixing a little bit of, and I've got a value, looks like a 9 here. And so I'm going to put that on my chart. So what I want to try and do is come up with a color scheme where I'm going to have a nice balance between things close to the value of 10 and things close to the value of 1, have a whole range there. And so just laying these colors in here, let's now see, so this diarrhea yellow, kind of call that sunshine in a can, that going to go ahead and put that on our chart as well. And then into, that looks like that's about a 7 using the value scale. So let's get that on our painting. And you'll notice that the yellow ochre that is in the middle, that's a number 5 on the scale. And I like to use yellow ochre because it's a perfectly balanced, warm, neutral. And when you put your lights on top of it, or you put your darks on top of it, it helps you, it helps take away the judgment of when you're looking and working on, for example, a white surface. Everything is going to look dark. But when you finish your painting and you cover all the white, then it can be deceiving. So by working in a middle value, that is very helpful to help you judge the colors. So this little green that I made here by taking the yellow and the black, that looks like that's roughly about a 6. So far we've got a range here of black is number 1, and we've got all the way up to that light yellow white is a 9. So just based on that, I'm thinking that we should have a successful painting as far as vibrancy goes. Now 3, so the red, what I wanted to test was when I get a bold looking painting, if I used this bright red as the background, or do I want to try and go dark with the background, like a dark red? So this test, and then or have something that's like a, half red and half burgundy. This will be the test that I'm going to use to see which color scheme is going to be looking the best to me before I go up to my larger 30-inch by 20-inch canvas. So when you're doing your own artwork and you're trying to work out your color schemes, I feel like if you have a grayscale and you try and lay those colors out and make sure that you represent all the different values meaning how light or how dark something is, if you try and do that, that can be very helpful. So using the color wheel, let me grab this black here, move it over to the black. So if I took red plus black, I can make a burgundy color. So I'm going to do that now here. I'm going to take a little puddle of red and add a little black to it, and then that can be our burgundy color. I could also use the permanent alizarin crimson, but the permanent alizarin crimson is very transparent, and I want something a little bit more opaque here. So this is a pretty dark color here. Let's see if we can go with something that's just a little bit, maybe even a little bit lighter yet. And that looks like we've got about, that one looks like it's going to be about a 2. So when looking at our color scheme, the bright red was a 3, and the dark red is a 2. So when I'm looking at that, I do like how dark the burgundy looks. I like that contrast when I squint and look, and I do like the contrast that's giving. So now let's try and see, what if we were to put maybe part of the canvas as red and part and then which is a value 3 on the scale, and part of it as a value 2. Can that make an even more dynamic look? And the trick when you are looking through your value, your grayscale, when you look through, kind of squint when you look through, because when you squint you won't see the color, you'll just see how light or how dark it is. So value is how light or how dark something is, and a painting will look more exciting to us if it is if it has a combination of light and dark in a pattern, or light and dark pattern. So if you try and keep your darks kind of connected together and your lights connected together,
it will make a more pleasing pattern. So now I realized I needed to add a little bit more of the yellow, that light yellow white, and I think we've got a winner here. I really like that red and burgundy combo. And seeing that in this red and burgundy combo, we've got everything represented except for pure white, the number 10. But we've got really all of the values in there, so I think that could make a really successful painting, a successful combination. So now that we have this, I now feel like we can pop over to the canvas and get started. So these are all the colors that you saw that we used. The greens, we've got the reds, the burgundies, basically all the colors that we used. Just moving to a larger brush now. So let's get in and let's just basically repeat the process, starting in with that light yellow and white combination. That was our lightest color, and you can work light to dark or dark to light, it doesn't really matter. Laying in our lightest greens. And now moving to a round brush. So I like to use a variety of different brushes. If you're like me, you have kind of a brush trove, but these round brushes are nice. They're just a nice versatile brush. All right, getting some of the darker green in with our large round brush. And I also, if you notice, I've got a long handle on this brush. If you hold your brush close to the ferrule, which is the metal part, your brush stroke will be more controlled. If you hold it more towards the end, you'll get a more lyrical or a more decisive swipe of paint. So I'm using now here a wide flat brush and putting on the red. Now I see that I got a little drippy with my red. I need to wipe that down. I just took a paper towel and just wipe that right off. But now just laying in the red side of it with the wide flat brush. That's an American Painter brush. The round brushes I was using were low Cornell brushes. And now laying in the first layer of the dark burgundy color that we made by mixing the red and the black together. So the red and the black together makes what's called a shade. When you mix any color with black, that's called a shade. And then a tint is if you take any color and add white, and a tone is if you take any color and add black plus white, or gray. So now going into our yellow, mixed with a small amount of titanium white. Just easing that onto the petals. It's also important to make sure that you apply enough paint. When I'm putting, there's a technique called dry brushing or scumbling, where you put just a tiny amount of paint and scrub it over the top of something, and then there are other techniques where you apply a large amount of paint. So the amount of paint you put on your brush also is a consideration. So now going in with more of the diarylide yellow, you can further develop those petals, and you can see how that super light white color that was mixed, once you put that diarylide yellow next to it, we can really get a more of a sense of a roundness in the petals. And you can also see too that by working out the color scheme ahead of time on a thumbnail, it's a real advantage. It allows you to work confidently when you're painting and then not have to wonder if your color scheme is going to be as dynamic or if you're looking for nuanced as you'd like. What I really want to focus on here while I'm painting is I don't want to have to worry about my color scheme. I want to be able to just think about the energy of the sunflowers and their joy, and I want to not have any worries in my head. I want to be able to just paint and get that expression of joy up onto the canvas. And speaking of joy, I want to say that I'm joyful that you are here with me today in the studio. Alright, so now when I'm comparing my thumbnail against my options that I had here, I'm looking at this one that we chose here, which is like half red and half burgundy, and I can see that the initial start that I did, I need to now go in with a second layer of color and bridge the gap between the bright red and the darkest color. So I'm using our in-between color that we mixed earlier when we were working on the thumbnail, and I'm going to just now lay that in and layer together over on the light color. I'll layer some of the dark, and then in the dark area we can layer in some of the light. But just to kind of bridge, I felt like there was maybe a little bit, it was almost kind of vulgar. There's almost too much of a gap between the light and the dark, and trying to make it a little bit more like our thumbnail. And adding just another layer of the red and transitioning these together. I'm liking how this feels, and I also feel like the painting feels more energetic to me. Alright, so now comparing against our thumbnail, these greens. Now I'm taking a look and I'm feeling like the greens that we have here on our stems are maybe too pale. So let's darken those up. I'll add a little black to the green that we have. And you can see a little version of the muffins right there. If you look off to the right at the bottom, you see her walk past. But this green, by going in and adding a darker green and then now working here on the edges of the leaves, sunflowers have a toothed edge. By going in and we can make it look a little bit more realistic by having both lights and darks in our stems and not just the one color. Look outside, you can see the snowplow is coming. We had a big snowstorm here, so working on these sunflowers, it's snowing here in Iowa, so I'll view out of my studio window. But you can see here working on these bright and glorious sunflowers is a way to think about summer. I've got spring fever really badly here. So I'm going to be using now a little Taklon liner, a little liner brush. And a liner brush is a long, thin, round brush with extra long bristles. And taking the acrylic paint and just watering it down very slightly, just so that the paint will flow like ink. Can sign my name. It's important to sign your work because when people are purchasing your work, they want to be able to see the signature evident on your work. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, it's Dena Tollefson. All my best to you, and bye-bye.